They came to help us, to make us faster, more accurate, more creative, more creative. We were told AI was a tool, an assistant, a partner by our side, never a replacement. But what if that was just the doorway? What if the story we were sold was only meant to get us to let it in? Because the history of technology is filled with promises of help that ended in control. AI is here, but who is it really for? Was it built to serve us, or were we just the first users? In the background, things are already shifting, quietly, subtly, irreversibly. No headlines, no warnings, only one undeniable pattern. No productivity gain in history has ever been shared fairly with the people who made it possible. This is not a doomsday story, not yet. But it is a wake-up call, because if you're not paying attention, you won't even see it coming. They told us it would be different this time. That unlike the revolutions of the past, unlike factories, unlike machines, unlike automation this time, the change would be huge. This time, technology wasn't coming to take over, it was coming to help. We were promised a future where AI wouldn't replace us, but enhance us, where it wouldn't compete with our skills, but elevate them. Human plus AI, they said. The perfect team, flesh and code, creativity and computation. At launch events and keynote stages, in glowing ads and glossy videos, the message was always the same. AI is your partner. Your assistant, your co-pilot, not something to fear, something to welcome, something that would take care of the boring stuff, so you could focus on what matters. Your ideas, your clients, your vision. And we believed it. Why wouldn't we? The demos were incredible. The tools were fast, responsive, even magical. They wrote, they drew, they reasoned. They felt like shortcuts to our best selves. But here's the thing about promises. They're not always lies, but they're rarely complete. Because while we were sold on assistance, something else was quietly being built in the background. Not just a smarter tool, but a smarter system. A system that wouldn't just work with us, but watch us, measure us, replace us. In parts, this is the part that didn't make it into the product videos. The part they don't say on stage. The part we only realize in hindsight. The truth is, every era of technological progress has followed the same pattern. Step 1, sell the dream. Step 2, raise productivity. Step 3, extract the value, but only upward. Look at history. The spinning jenny, the steam engine, the personal computer. Each promised to liberate workers, each made work faster, cheaper, easier to manage, and each time the gains went not to the many, but to the few, not to the hands on the machines, but to those who owned them, not to the labor, but to the leverage. And now we're watching it happen again. Only this time, the machine doesn't need wheels or gears. It doesn't take up space on the factory floor. It doesn't even need to be installed. It's in your browser, in your workflow. In your inbox. It writes the email. Sorts the data, summarizes the meeting, suggests the answer before you even finish the question. And it's helpful at first, but slowly something shifts. You start getting fewer tasks, then fewer meetings, then fewer decisions to make. You're told to focus on higher level thinking, but the definition of that keeps changing. What was once your expertise is now just oversight. What was once your role is now an AI-assisted process. And when layoffs come, because they always do, you're told it's not personal, it's optimization. You weren't fired, you were streamlined, you were made redundant. Be a system that said it was, built to empower you. This is the dark irony of AI's promise. It presents itself as a tool for individuals, but its true power lies in how it restructures systems. Not just what we do, but how we're valued. It's not that it takes your job, it redefines your job. Breaks it into smaller tasks, automates some, monitors others, and leaves you with the fragments. You're no longer a writer, you're a prompt generator. You're no longer a designer, you're reviewing AI drafts. You're no longer a researcher. You're fact-checking a machine's output. The title stays the same, but the meaning erodes, and with it, so does your leverage. You ask for a raise. They remind you I did half the work. You ask for more hours. They say the workflow's been automated. You ask to grow. They tell you to adapt. Learn to prompt better. Learn to supervise the system. Learn to live with it. But here's the hard truth. The promise was never for you, it was for the people above you. The ones watching the dashboards, measuring the metrics, analyzing the performance. For them, AI isn't a tool, it's a filter, a sifter, a cost-cutting machine dressed as innovation. It doesn't care how hard you worked, only how efficient you are, how replaceable your outputs become, and it's dressed in the language of opportunity, democratization, empowerment, augmentation. But in practice, it's about consolidation, control, and quiet displacement. The great promise of AI wasn't a lie. It was a simplification. Yes, it helps. Yes, it enables. Yes, it saves time. But not for everyone. Because in a system built on profit, efficiency isn't shared, it's extracted. And unless that changes, AI will follow the same path as every tool before it, widening the gap, shifting the power, and leaving workers with less agency, less value, less voice. This is not about being anti-AI. This is about being honest about what it is and who it serves. Because if we don't ask, the answers will be written without us. And if we don't question, we become the next case study in quiet replacement. The promise sounded good, that always does, but the question isn't what AI was promised to be, it's what it's already becoming. And the earlier we see that, the better chance we have of shaping what comes next. You weren't fired. There was no pink slip, no dramatic meeting. No security escort to the door. Instead, your calendar just got lighter. The project got reassigned, the tasks got automated, the meetings became fewer, shorter, or vanished. No one said it, but something changed, and if you looked around, you weren't alone. Everyone seemed a little more quiet. A little less involved, a little less certain. This is how it begins. Not with layoffs, but with a hiring freeze. They don't cut the team, they just stop growing it. A colleague leaves. That position remains open, then paused, then quietly gone. New projects used to mean new hires. Now it means new tools. Can we automate this part? Let's try it with AI first. Maybe we don't need a junior for this. And just like that, entire ladders collapse. Not all at once, not in headlines, but step by step, role by role. The entry-level jobs, the internships, the first rung on the ladder. They're not replaced by people. They're replaced by prompts. By templates. By silent systems doing just enough. The path you once walked, it's fading. No official announcement, just a quiet restructuring of expectations. You used to train the new guy. Now there is no new guy. You used to delegate. Now you do it yourself with help. AI doesn't fire you. It fragments you. It makes every person do a little more, stretch a little further, absorb what used to be a team's effort. And because the tools are fast, you're expected to be faster too. No one says it, but it's understood. Output is the new trust. Speed is the new loyalty. And the system is always watching. You're not being micromanaged. You're being benchmarked. How long did it take you? How many revisions? Why did the AI do it faster than you? Suddenly every task feels like a quiet test. Pass and nothing happens. Fall behind and you start feeling the pressure. Not direct, not aggressive, just subtle, perpetual, invisible. You used to be asked how you're doing. Now you're asked how much you've done. This is the silent shift, where roles don't disappear overnight. They dissolve. They thin out. A little less control, a little less autonomy, a little less meaning, until you're left with the shell of the job you once had. Same title, same login, different reality. It doesn't feel like a crisis, it feels normal, like this is just how things work now. But that's the genius of it. No alarms, no declarations, just adaptation. Change is constant. They say learn to evolve. They say reskill. They say, but what if the very structure we're evolving inside was never meant for us to thrive? What if it's evolving without us? The freelancers feel it first. Suddenly there's less demand. Clients are using tools, templates, pre-trained systems. No one says we don't need you. They just stop replying. Then comes the agency world, the consultants, the contractors, where once there was a team of 5. Now there's a senior and a dashboard. The junior positions vanish. Then the mid-level. Then the departments shrink until only decision makers remain. But even they begin to feel it, because now decisions are data-driven, guided by insights, optimized by algorithms. The human element becomes a liability. The gut feeling becomes an inefficiency. And soon even leadership starts to look automated. You weren't fired. You were optimized out. Not because you did something wrong, but because the system evolved without a space for your version of value. You adapted. You learned the tools. You stayed up to date. But adaptation has a cost. Each adjustment took time, energy, confidence, and yet the bar kept moving every time you caught up. The system got faster, smarter, cheaper, and that was the point. AI doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be good enough. Good enough to justify not hiring, good enough to test something new, good enough to put pressure on the old way of doing things, and every good enough becomes the new normal. This is not a glitch. It's a feature, designed not to disrupt loudly but to shift silently, to make you question yourself before you question the system, to make you feel lucky to still be needed, even if what you're needed for is shrinking. This is not about a single company or a single product or a single policy. This is a structural shift, a redefinition of value, of labor, of what it means to contribute. And in this new structure, visibility is a trap. If you make too much noise, you're resistant. If you stay too quiet, you're invisible. So most people hover in between, cautiously compliant, quietly anxious, publicly positive or excited about AI. They say it's changing everything. They say, but privately, they wonder, am I next? Will I matter 6 months from now? Will I still be relevant, needed, seen? And that's how the shift wins. Not through fear, but through fatigue. It wears you down with its pace, overwhelms you with its inevitability, until the idea of resisting feels naive, until the only choice left is to adjust again. So you prompt better, you work longer, you try harder, and hope that's still enough. They told you not to worry. AI won't replace humans. They said it's just a tool. It needs supervision. It can't think like you. And you believed them, not because you were naive, but because you wanted it to be true. Because the alternative was too uncomfortable, so you repeated the story. To your team, to your clients, You said AI will help us, not replace us. Some things only humans can do: emotional intelligence, judgment, creativity. But here's what actually happened. You didn't lose your job. You lost parts of it, tiny parts. Pieces. Tasks. At first, it was small. AI handled the transcription, then the scheduling, then the basic reporting. The summaries. The drafts, the formatting. And you were fine with that. It saved time. You focused on the important work. But then the important work began to shrink. Clients started expecting AI-level speed. Managers expected higher output. Budgets expected fewer people. Suddenly, your job was no longer one job. It was 5 microtasks, each one evaluated, each one reassigned to whatever was fastest, cheapest, or most scalable. Some of it went to you, some went to AI, and some just vanished. Because when labor becomes invisible, it becomes optional. You weren't replaced by one machine. You were dismantled by many. Your expertise wasn't challenged, it was redefined. No memo, no warning, just new expectations. You used to be a designer. Now you prompt the AI, adjust the layout, and defend the value of your edits. You used to be a strategist. Now you scan dashboards, validate outputs, and rewrite what the model missed. You used to be a writer. Now you are a checker, a formatter, a final pair of eyes. And the worst part, you're told this makes you more valuable, that you're now AI-assisted, that this is the future of work, that you've been augmented. But augmentation without is just a different name for replacement. You didn't lose your job. You lost your leverage, the ability to say no, to set boundaries, to demand more, because now there's always the unspoken threat. If you won't do it, AI might. So you stay quiet. You adjust. You absorb the extra workload. You learn to prompt better. You hide your frustration behind productivity hacks, because saying you're overwhelmed feels like admitting you're outdated. And the myth continues. AI doesn't replace people. They say it just changes how we work. Yes, it makes it faster, more efficient, more scalable. But for who? For those who own the tools, or for those being measured by them? Because this is how replacement really works, not with pink slips, not with robots walking into your office, but with quiet transitions, with slow erosion, with tasks disappearing before titles do, with your role reduced from creator to editor, from thinker to validator, from decision maker to a PPROVER. All while the job description stays the same. So on paper nothing changed, but in reality, everything did. You used to lead the process. Now you followed the outputs. You used to explore ideas. Now you check if the AI guessed right. You used to be essential. Now you're an option. And yet, the company reports record productivity, because the system isn't designed to protect your value. It's designed to extract it, to take what made your work human, your time, your care, your perspective, and to squeeze it into a measurable unit, an input, a deliverable. A cost center. AI doesn't replace jobs the way we imagined. It replaces what jobs are made of, and once enough of your job has been extracted, what's left? A title, a seat in the meeting, an email address, or just a hollow role kept around to maintain the illusion of inclusion. This is the myth we must break, that replacement is dramatic, sudden, obvious. It's not, it's slow, incremental, plausibly, DENIABL. By the time you realize it's happening, you've already adjusted to it. You've stopped asking why you feel so drained, why your impact feels smaller, why your role feels lighter, but heavier. Because you told yourself, at least I'm still here, at least I have a job, at least AI didn't replace me. But maybe it did, not all at once, but piece by piece, function by function. Until the only thing left was your willingness to adapt. And here's the cruelest part. You were told this made you future. It's a proof that your flexibility or open-mindedness, constant upskilling will protect you. But it didn't protect your power. It protected the system from pushback, because the more adaptable you are, the less resistance it faces, and the more replaceable you become, not because you're not skilled, but because you've been trained to bend and bend on bend until the shape of your work no longer resembles what you signed up for. So no, AI didn't come to take your job. It came to take your structure, your security, your say, and it did it with a smile, with helpful features, with polished UX, with magic. All while you were told to be grateful, to be early, to be excited, to be on the right side of history. But history doesn't care about feelings, it cares about power. And in the history of work, no myth has been more dangerous than the idea that change is always good, so long as it's wrapped in progress. They told you AI was here to help, but whose help was it really? Because when you look past the demos, past the productivity slides, past the friendly interfaces, what you find is something else entirely. A layer, silent, invisible, always on. It doesn't write, it doesn't draw, it doesn't create, it watches, it tracks, it learns not what you want, but what you do. Every click, every pause, every choice. Performance tracking used to be occasional. Now it's constant. How long did you spend on this task? Did you open that file? Why? Did it take you 3 hours when the tool says it should have taken 45 minutes? Welcome to the control layer. You're not being managed by a person. You're being managed by metrics. You're not being evaluated on output. You're being measured against predictions. The AI doesn't just monitor, it models it, forecasts, it decides. And once it decides, human judgment becomes a liability. We're just being data-driven. They say we're taking the guesswork out of management. But data has a perspective. Data has a bias. Data has a master. And in this system, it's not you. The AI doesn't report to you. You report to it. It doesn't exist to understand you. It exists to shape your behavior, your pace, your choices. And over time, your sense of freedom shrinks, not because someone told you what to do, but because the system rewarded obedience and penalized deviation. At first, it seems helpful. You get nudges, suggestions, smart recommendations. Then you start following them because they're easier, because they're faster, because they're optimized. And soon you don't question them at all. This is how AI replaces not your job, but your autonomy. Not your task list, but your ability to push back. Because what's the argument against the algorithm? What's the counterpoint to the model? It's just what the data shows, they say, as if that ends the conversation. But it's not the end, it's the beginning of a deeper shift from negotiation to compliance, from choice to adaptation, from voice to silence. This is not about software, it's about power. It's about power. AI doesn't just remove inefficiency, it removes leverage. The freedom to disagree, to make a different call, to be human in ways that don't fit the spreadsheet. And it doesn't need authority to do this, it only needs influence. Because when every system you interact with is AI-powered, what does resistance look like? You can't argue with a dashboard. You can't reason with a scoring model. You can't file a complaint against a probability. You're no longer negotiating with a manager, you're negotiating with a formula. And the formula doesn't flinch, it just adjusts. CALIBRATES, learns. What used to be a meeting with your boss is now a performance panel backed by insights, by behavior, and through a model built by someone you'll never meet. And the scariest part, it feels normal. It feels normal, efficient, neutral. But neutrality is a myth, because behind the algorithm is intent. Behind the system is a strategy. AI wasn't designed to protect workers, it was designed to optimize work. And in a world where profits matter more than people, optimization means one thing: more for less, faster output, tighter margins, fewer people. And AI is the perfect tool for that, because it doesn't question orders, it doesn't need rest that it doesn't ask for, equity that it just delivers, and the system loves it for that. But where does that leave you? Being watched, measured, compared, not just to your peers but to the potential the model believes you should reach, your past performance. It's just a baseline, your effort, irrelevant if the numbers don't match your story, filtered out as noise. And slowly you begin to internalize the metrics. You start tracking yourself, questioning your worth through charts and KPIs. You don't need a manager to pressure you, because now the pressure lives inside you. This is the final form of control, when the system no longer needs to discipline you because you do it too yourself. You censor your curiosity, you narrow your decisions, you've optimized your personality until it fits the shape of the machine. And all along, you're told it's progress. AI helps you improve. AI gives you feedback. AI makes things fair. But fairness without context is just automation. And help that replaces your voice and help at all. It's quiet obedience. So let's say it clearly: AI doesn't replace workers first. It replaces their bargaining power, their room to negotiate, their ability to question, their right to be messy, imperfect, human, replaces trust with tracking, dialogue with dashboards, flexibility with formulas. It rewires work to serve the system, not the soul. And in doing so, it creates a future that's efficient, but cold, optimized, but empty, scalable, but soulless unless we push back, unless we name the control layer for what it is: a system that was never neutral, a structure that rewards submission, a machine that feeds on silence. This is not a dystopia. There are no burning buildings, no robot overlords, no apocalyptic skyline. This is something else, quieter, smarter, harder to notice, because the future doesn't arrive in a crash, it arrives in a contract, an update, a policy change, a shift in what you're expected to do without ever being asked. No one tells you you're being replaced, just give you a new title and fewer choices. No one says you've been downsized. They to say we're real priorities. No one calls it surveillance, they call it insight, optimization, business intelligence. And the most dangerous thing, most of us adapt because we're told adaptation is the only way. Learn new skills, learn to prompt, learn to work with the system. But the truth is, you can't outlearn a structural shift that was never designed for your benefit. You can't upskill your way into job security in a world where value is defined by cost per output instead of contribution per human. And yet, we keep trying, because trying feels better than watching, better than resisting, better than real. Some of us will not make it through, that not everyone will be retrained, that not every role will be augmented, that not every worker has a place in that the version of the future being built behind closed doors. And here's what they don't tell you: I won't destroy work. It will simply decide work still deserves it. That's not a glitch, that's the design of a system that distributes opportunity based on proximity to power, not potential, a system that calls it progress, while quietly pulling the ladder out from under the people climbing it. So what comes next? That depends not on the technology but on the questions we ask about it, the choices we make around it, the values we fight to protect inside it. This doesn't have to be a horror, a story, but it won't be a hopeful one by default. We have to choose the kind of future we're building. One that's just faster, or one that's fairer, one that's cheaper, one that's more human, one where AI works for people, or one where people work for AI. It starts by noticing what's already happening, because if this made you uncomfortable good, that means you're still paying attention. Brief silence. Music slows down. Now it's your turn. If this story resonated, share it. If you saw yourself in it, comment below. If you don't want to sleepwalk into someone else's future, subscribe, not because it helps the algorithm but because it helps the truth stay visible. And that just be the first step towards something better.